So hi everyone, so nice to see so many young people here because we're living a messed up world for you guys to deal with. And I'd like to give you a message of hope that it's not that it's so messed up that you can't deal with it. You certainly can deal with it. Just don't count on people like me and my generation because we're the ones who messed it up for you. So here's something, of course, one of the most messed up things in many messed up things is climate change. And it's something which is affecting every part of our lives, not only here in India, but all over the world. And it sounds like such a huge issue because it leads to refugee crises, climate crises, all kinds of crises. So I'm here to tell you that in spite of the UN telling you what kind of world you're going to be left with, how the youth are going to be most impacted, it's also you guys who are going to make the difference. Step up, become leaders of the future, take the place of people like me and our current leaders of the world and make a change which is going to actually make the world fully livable again. And that means that you don't give up. So how do you not give up? The only thing I can do for you is to tell you something about my own experiences and the lessons learned and hope that you will take them further and learn many more lessons and do far better than what we have been able to do. So this is something I wrote for Forbes recently on climate change. But I don't know what's happening to this. It's going the wrong way. My journey really started with something which I saw as a very small local issue near my house. I had very young children, I was bored, I didn't want to be changing nappies for the rest of my life. So I thought, well, let me do something which everyone tells me is crazy and with no real hope of success. So I took on sand mining at Killeen. Here are the effects of sand mining. It was the beach near my house. But because I lived in Mumbai, I just didn't take up too much of my time. And anyway, everyone told me this was not going to work. So I also took up noise pollution. And everyone said I was crazy, and I'm sure they were right. Because these are the decibel levels at that time, 123.2. So how do you take up sand mining? You take it up locally. So you go and stop a truck carrying sand and say this is illegal, of course. And they didn't want to listen to me, neither did anyone else. The administration said, we don't know what you're talking about. Sand mine sea brings in plenty of sand. Don't worry about it. And of course I got attacked. So this is my car. After the first attack, I was actually attacked twice. I came home after going to the police station and the Alibag hospital, and I came home and my husband said, where were you? It was early morning, and I said, well, sit down, you're never going to believe it, because this is what I was doing. But of course, when you're attacked, or when you have some kind of thing happen to you, which is an ultimatum, you either do it or you don't do it. So again, being a little bit crazy perhaps, I can't resist an ultimatum, so I decided that I am going to take it further. And I filed the first public interest litigation against SAM, but there was no data at the time. So what do? You gather data. So you visit sand mining sites, and this is what I figured out. This is the Vaitanal railway bridge where all the trains go, and there's sand mining happening right at the foot of the bridge. I later discovered that the railway authorities had written to the government a number of times, but nothing happened. This is sand mining at Mahad. This is the area where I was attacked the second time when I was nearly killed, along with some journalists. But this is the pictures that we got, and these pictures at that time were not available. This is what happened just a little bit later in the same area, Mahad, when the road bridge collapsed and a number of people died. Nobody acknowledged or did any investigations to find out why the bridge fell down. But there were a number of sand barges found in that same stretch of river, and of course it was the area where I had been attacked by the sand mafia. So this is something I wrote for the Mumbai Mirror at the time, act before the Vaitanal bridge goes the hard way, and although nobody acknowledged that it made any sense for me to say this, but sand mining near that bridge didn't stop. And also because I filed public interest litigation, the court helped and we got a number of court orders. And because I had been attacked, and perhaps as a woman, and because so many other activists joined me and also said how they had been attacked, we set up this group called Mitra, Movement Against Intimidation took it out to the Commissioner of Police, who set up a special cell for activists. And so things did change, although nobody acknowledged that they were changing. And in fact, people still said that these are not issues to take up. Take up education, take up something which makes sense. Don't take up such issues. So the sand mafia who attacked me continued attacks on various other people. It became more and more obvious that this is not just a local problem as I had thought. It's happening across the country. And it became obvious also that sand is the second most extracted mineral in the world after water. It's the second most extracted material. And yet no one knew about sand mining at that time. It's only through the attacks and the fact that the existence of the sand mafia was reported in the press that the link with that and sand mining became more apparent to people. But of course, very few people wanted to take it up, or do people now. So, I mean, obviously you need an environmental police. You don't regulate traffic by giving it to some general person who doesn't know anything about traffic. And you don't regulate wildlife crime unless you have forest wardens who actually train to take up wildlife crime and know the area and know what to do, and also give them laws and empowerment which can give them the tools to do that. So today, any environmental crime which is happening outside a protected area, a national park, has no way in which it can be regulated. So this is what I said then, and this is what I still think we need: an environmental police which is trained and empowered. And of course, these issues are all kind of impossible. So here's, you have to be, as I said, getting slightly crazy. Difficult jobs are always more fun. If it's too easy, if it's not challenging, it's hardly worth doing. So what's the second thing I wanted to take up, because sand mining wasn't really enough for my time? Noise pollution. Later on it turned out that India is the noisiest, or one of the noisiest countries in the world. And here's number one in the world for hearing loss is Delhi, number 2 is Mumbai. So we're facing an epidemic of becoming a deaf nation, and it is reported that children your age, between 18 and 20 today in India, have the hearing capability of 60-year-olds in previous generations. So it's not something to be taken lightly, but again, everyone told me, oh, Indians love noise, they're noisy people, you're against culture, you're against enjoyment, you're just someone who's not having any fun in life. And this is why you're against all our celebrations. This is not true. I mean, I am very much for celebrations. I would love all of you to enjoy your lives, but in such a manner that you don't permanently disable yourselves and create a risk in your future careers. So how do you go about educating people about something where no one wants to recognize at all? The first thing, of course, is that in the city, Mumbai, we have a fantastic spirit, which everyone knows about when it comes to disasters. We deal with all kinds of terrible things like floods and things like that, and help each other and do all that. But we also have, at the same time, that spirit of Mumbai doesn't extend only to disasters. It extends to listening to new ways of doing things. So here, and people ask me, they said, aren't you afraid you're going to all these very overcrowded areas and telling people not to make noise, who are completely engrossed in making noise? But you can see no one wants to be, their own health to be damaged. And of course, noise is a health issue, because you're damaging the health of the person who's making the noise first, because he's the most exposed. So here we are at one of the festivals, and people are actually asking me, what's the noise? Is it safe? And after the first High Court order in 2004, when the High Court said that no loudspeakers could be used in silent zones, this was during one of the major festivals, and I thought all the festival organizers would be against me, but far from it. They came to me and said, at the end of it, one of them came to me and said, my daughter's doing a college project on, she wants to make noise pollution, can you help her? So I really salute the spirit of the city, where we're willing to take on new ways of doing things, new ways of looking at things, without destroying our culture, our tradition, our enjoyment, and our spirit. So that's Mumbai. So of course, who do you start with? The younger generation. As I started by saying, they are the hope. have to spread the message, which one person like me can't do. So if you try and work with the media, and it started for me when the first journalist I ever met outside the High Court after the first order that I ever got asked me, what are you going to do to implement this order? And I said, well, I had no clue that I'm supposed to be implementing court orders too. I thought the court order is enough. So somehow I gave him my phone number, and my mobile number became the hot noise hotline, and people still call me on a daily basis practically, although now people can do it on their own. So of course the press and media, because they spread the message, whether it's noise, whether it's sound, whether it's any other issue you pick up, I think you have to somehow figure out ways. And today of course you have social media as well. Who are the most affected? The cops. Because we figured out that it's one thing to tell them you never do your job, you're useless, you're hopeless, and another to explain to them that they are the most affected. Because of course everyone, as I said, doesn't want themselves to be affected. So we did hearing tests on these cops, traffic cops, and we found that over 75% had disabling hearing loss. And then the police repeated this test themselves, and they found a much higher number than that. So you wrote with the cops, and here, they did a number of awareness messages with us. That's the Commissioner of Police releasing a campaign we call Horn Flu. And people, it's the people who we start with and end with. So you empower them to take their own readings, you don't try and do things for them, and they set up the systems, they take it forward, and you become only an enabler, which is as it should be. How do you create awareness about sand mining, which is a more remote issue? So this is Juhu Beach. We buried ourselves in Juhu Beach and told people, like the Chipko movement, the sand belongs to us. Then you again create awareness. So this is at the UN in 2012. The UN had never heard of sand mining, although coastal issues were some of their most important. And so this is presenting to them for the very first time in 2012. I'm telling them that sand mining is a political issue apart from an environmental one. It's been traded across the world, and it's destroying environment, coastlines, livelihoods, all kinds of things. We made a documentary film. This is made by someone in France. It was telecast all over Europe. The UN saw it. This is another documentary film which was made by the Australian Broadcasting Corporation talking about sand mafia in India. But still the attacks continue. This is just a few months ago, where the sand mafia is still busy attacking not only activists like me, but government officers trying to do their job to prevent the sand mafia's operation. The government came up with a new policy which didn't really help very much because it changed the sand mafias with the stone mafias, which is equally damaging to the environment. For just one project, you require 4,000 tons of rock per day. This is the kind of requirement we have. So you go back to the UN, of course we go in court as well, we got a number of court orders, we've been interacting with the government. But again, the UN, after that first presentation in 2012, finally took up the issue in 2019. So this is the first ever conference internationally they had on sand mining, internationally in Geneva, and I presented virtually. They accepted a lot of my recommendations, and because what I said was that the UN is great, it's wonderful to have policies, it's wonderful to have Government of India policies, but unless those policies are rooted in what's action which is happening on the ground, they aren't really going to help, because you can come up with brilliant policies which can't be implemented. For example, you come up with the Sustainable Sand Mining Guidelines, which takes no note of the fact that there are violent mafias operating on the ground. So India uses 60 million metric tons a year of sand. This is a study which was done for the very first time by the IIT Bombay at a request in December of 2019. 1,200 million metric tons of cumulative urban legacy waste is dumped in legacy landfills. Waste can be combined with binders such as fly ash, lime and cement to make construction materials such as blocks and pavers. 10% of our requirement can be met with recycled construction and demolition waste. 100% of sand requirement can be met on other types of legacy waste are also recycled. I think it's worth doing because the UN has recommended, we have done experimental projects here, it requires inputs from the government, not in terms just of policy change, but in terms of funding for R&D. It requires commercialization. You know, when I was young, like you guys, we never thought the world could go round at all without coal and oil. We had never heard of renewable energies. We have wonderful minds in this country. The UN has said that India has the potential to take the lead in this because we also have some of the greatest quantity of rubbish, of plastic, of other things which are lying in our landfills. We know how the landfills start burning every year. They create other problems. The construction and debris waste is dumped on mangroves. We can solve all these issues in one shot provided we have a will to do it. We certainly have the scientific minds and brains. Many of those are the young people who are sitting here today who have the interest, who will suffer the consequences if these things are not done, and who can take this further. The sand is our sand. Please save the sand, but don't save it just by saying, oh, the whole world will stop, our GDP growth will decline. Nothing of the kind. We have solutions, we can find them. Also, with noise pollution, what did we do there? That yes, we did all kinds of awareness campaigns with the police, but this is with the police at their safety week inauguration. It's time for action. We don't need only awareness. We need also enforcement. So this is a session I had training the police, where we trained them how to use decibel meters, how to go ahead and the result was this. The noise levels during festivals in Mumbai, the obesity in the country, where they fell drastically, and the Mumbai Police Commissioner thanked the citizens of Mumbai for making it a public movement. So what's next? I mean, I wouldn't give up with just noise pollution and sand mining. We've done this much here, but now what's the next crisis? Air pollution. This is something that was set up by young people who asked me to help them to generate data for them. These lungs are made of material that oxygen masks are made of. It's breathable material. In 1 week of installation, it turned black. And that's our air pollution crisis. We're all getting sick. I managed to get hold of an air pollution meter and trying to generate data there. This is a burning roadside dump at Abdulali, which just 3 days ago I measured. The results were shocking. The 1750 particles which are breathable. I urge everyone here to take up these issues. People like me are there to help you, to guide you, tell you the pitfalls, and to tell you not to give up. Don't listen to people who tell you it can't be done. It can be done. Thank you very much.